Stop looking at the S&P 500 because the most dangerous chart in the world right now is the $8 spread between silver in New York and silver in Shanghai. If you don't understand why that gap exists, you are effectively trading blind in a market that just broke fundamentally. We are witnessing the paper illusion collapse in real time, which means the price discovery mechanism you rely on to value your assets is lying to you. This matters to your bottom line because the cost of the hardware running our entire digital economy just doubled, and your portfolio is likely positioned for a world that ended on October 26th. That was the day Beijing issued Announcement 68, and if you missed it, you missed the signal that changed the rules of the game. They didn't just ban exports, they weaponized the supply chain by implementing a licensing regime requiring $30 million in credit lines and 80 tons of capacity. This bureaucratic chokehold wiped out every small and medium exporter overnight, consolidating the entire nation's supply into the hands of state-owned giants who do not answer to free market forces. By draining the global liquidity pool, they ensured that the West can no longer source the cheap metal required to keep your green energy stocks profitable. The arbitrage is dead, and normally, traders would buy the cheap metal in New York and sell it in China to fix the price, but that mechanism is gone. Now, silver is $80 an ounce, and the West is trapped in a squeeze that is mathematically impossible to exit because the physical inventory cannot move across borders. This leaves Western markets exposed to extreme volatility where the paper price can detach completely from reality. If you are holding an ETF that tracks the paper price, you might own an asset that claims to be worth one thing, while the physical reality trades for a massive premium you cannot access. We are calling this the atom squeeze. Here is why you need to pay attention. Two massive industries are fighting for the same limited resource, and neither of them cares about the price because they cannot function without it. First, the solar industry shifted to TopCon cells, which burn 50% more silver to achieve the efficiency required by new energy mandates. Second, the $700 billion AI build-out hit a physical wall called heat, and silver is the only material conductive enough to keep next-gen data centers from melting down. China knows this, which is why they locked the exit doors to secure their own industrial sovereignty. They understand that controlling the atoms is more valuable than controlling the reserve currency in an era of resource scarcity. This means the supply shock is not a temporary trade fluctuation, it is a calculated geopolitical maneuver. If you are betting on a return to normal prices, you are betting against the strategic national interest of the world's largest manufacturer. You might think, miners will just dig more, but that is the losing bet, because silver supply is geologically inelastic. 80% of silver comes as a byproduct of mining lead, zinc, and copper, meaning a miner cannot just flip a switch to produce more silver without flooding the market with metals nobody wants. We are in the fifth year of a structural deficit, missing 820 million ounces, which creates a mathematical floor under the price. This deficit guarantees that even if demand flattens today, it would take a decade of new mine construction to fill the hole we have already dug. Look at the inventory data if you want to see the panic. New York vaults are down 70%, and lease rates, the cost to get your hands on real metal, just hit 200%. When it costs more to borrow cash than to borrow metal, the market is screaming that the physical assets are gone, and holders are refusing to let go. This backwardation is the ultimate danger signal for anyone shorting the market. It means there is literally no physical backstop to cover the paper contracts being traded today. If you hold paper contracts, you are the bag holder. The ratio of paper claims to physical ounces is 356 to 1, meaning there are 356 people holding a receipt for every single ounce of silver actually sitting in the vault. When China shut the door, the music stopped, and we are now watching a slow-motion run on the bank where only the first person in line gets the metal. If you are not physically hating the asset, you don't own silver. You own a promise from a counterparty that is technically insolvent. This is already hitting the P&L of the companies you love. Tesla uses 50 grams per car, and at these prices, their manufacturing margins are getting crushed exactly when they need to cut costs to compete. First Solar is seeing costs triple, which fundamentally alters the profitability of the entire renewable energy sector. This is cost-push inflation that eats earnings per share. Mean the high-flying tech stocks in your 401k are facing a silent earnings recession driven by raw material costs. But if you are on the right side of this trade, this is a generational opportunity. Newmont is at 170%, and the streaming companies are printing cash with 84% margins because their costs are fixed while their revenue explodes. These companies own the ground, not the paper derivatives, insulating them from the counterparty risks blowing up the exchanges. Capital is fleeing the tech sector and rushing into the resource sector, and you need to decide if you are going to follow the money or get left behind. The takeaway is brutal but simple. The era of cheap resources subsidized by paper markets is over. The USGS finally admitted it by listing silver as critical, but they are 10 years too late to fix the supply cliff. You cannot print silver, and no amount of government stimulus can conjure a mine into existence overnight. The question isn't whether silver goes to $100. The question is, when the dust settles, will your wealth be preserved in atoms or evaporated in paper?